Welcome back to the She Thrives Influential Women podcast. My name is Lori Murphy, and I am an empowerment coach for women. And today I have an amazing guest, and her name is Casey Demarse, and she is the founder of Demarse Individual Arts. Now, Casey, she is a mother, a proud veteran from the United States Navy, and she is a psychic medium and a healer. She is certified in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and she has a phenomenal story. And she's here to share with us her journey and a little bit about what she does. And I am so excited to have her here. So without further ado, here's Casey. Hi, Casey.
Hi, thank you for
How are
having
you?
me.
Oh, I'm excited to have you here. We were just talking before the podcast. Casey and I more or less became connected on social media, but our stories are so aligned. Like we went through
Yes.
so many similar experiences that brought us to this place of healing and being able to help others.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yes, we did. And it's funny when I saw your message on social media, I was like, I don't know if this is real or not because this is something that I want to be a part of. And your message and your energy is so just spot on for what I'm looking for, like people in my life. And so it took me a minute to like want to connect because I was liking all your stuff and you had noticed that I was liking a lot of your and you reached out just to say hi and I was like, I don't is this real? Like is this like a chat like AI bot? Like is this so I at one point I was like, I'm not gonna engage because I don't and I'm so happy I did because this what you're doing is so amazing and so positive and really, really needed. And I'm just really really grateful and happy to be a part of this.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you responded. And I think because here's the thing, I get a lot of those, AI bot
Yeah.
messages all the
Yeah.
time. And I find that, I get the friend request and then people in
Mhm.
my inbox, or sometimes they're inboxing me before they even send me a friend request.
Right. Right. Right.
A lot of them are, and and I think that, and I'm glad that you took the chance to respond because it's me,
Yeah.
like I'm a
Hi.
real person. And if I'm reaching out to you, it's because I want to say hello and I want to connect. And so, I'm really glad that you took that chance and now we're connected and here you are.
Yeah. Here we are. Yeah.
So Casey, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from and how did you get here?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I was born and raised in Cohoes, New York, and I was born into a family of, funeral directors and um, also clairvoyance. So at a young age, I really was in I didn't know it was an abstract um, part of society until like later on in my life. And um, so when I was younger, I I was always like very closed off, very shy, um, just not really present. I was present, but I was just so shy. I was so shy in life. And as I got older and decided what I wanted to do in life, I decided to join the Navy to kind of like see the world. So I joined the Navy at, 18. It was like 3 days before I shipped out. I turned 18 and became a mechanic and really thrived as a mechanic for a little bit. And, but then like, there's a lot of darkness that happened too. And there was a lot of, um, sorry, my phone. And there was a lot of, um, things I was exposed to in the service that really traumatized me for a while because growing up in a small town, there's a lot of things that you take for granted and that you don't get exposed to.
Mhm.
So alcohol was a really big problem for me, and it really messed up my life in the service and when I got out of the service. So um, and when we were talking before, like one of the biggest things that I struggled with and that brought me into this intuitive world and the psychic world is trying to get in touch with my feminine energy. because when you're in the service and you're a mechanic and you're a welder, and then I got out of the service and I became a diesel mechanic and still continued welding, there's so much masculine energy, and I didn't know who I was. So I had to try to understand what it meant to be feminine and what masculinity meant. And in masculinity didn't mean that because, I was turning wrenches and I wore a uniform and I was strong. Like that's what I thought masculine energy was. And I was very wrong. And when I decided to stop drinking and stop being best friends with alcohol, I really was able to tap into like my feminine side, that intuitive side. And things started clicking for me and doors were open mentally, subconsciously, that allowed me to tie in my roots to, you know, this obscure business and the relationship that I had and my family had with the departed. And things like light bulbs started going off. Like, wow, I was born to do this because of my upbringing. And I didn't know how to process that. And like, so it evolved, and there was a lot of aha moments as I look back on my life and reflect. And I never ever say to look back on life only to see how far you have come. Never turn around, never look back, don't live in the past. But so now here I am with you, and I've been on this psychic, mediumship, intuitive programming, like law of attraction, hermetics, for like 5 years now. And it has allowed me to step into my femininity without feeling like a stranger to it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. Now, one of the things that I heard one of the things you were talking about was learning the difference between, with the real meaning of masculine energy is and feminine energy. Now, what did you discover when you looked into that? Like, what is the true meaning of masculine energy and the feminine energy?
Yeah, that's a good question. So everyone, and my view of the world, like my perspective of the world, is going to obviously be different than someone else's, or maybe another psychic medium or an energy practitioner who works in the field
Mhm.
may disagree with me. But it's just from my perspective and what I've learned in these very short 5 years is that you know masculine energy is how we structure things. It's creating a safe place for the feminine energy to create. So, and we have both those sides. Like, so it's like the yin and the yang. There's this dualistic nature. It's the sun and the moon. It's the masculine and the feminine. So this duality is really etched in our reality, but it's just not, we just don't see it sometimes. The
Mhm.
how present this dual force is. And when we learn to bring them together and say, okay, I need to work on my masculine energy because right now I have all these creative ideas and I want to do all these amazing things, but I'm not disciplined in the structure of how I'm going to do it. So that's where the masculinity comes from, is that structure. How am I going to structure these ideas? How can I um, bring in people who may know more than I do about executing this goal? And so the masculine energy has to structure or provide a safe place for the feminine energy to create. And for a long time, I thought that meant I need to find a partner, a man out there who is in his divine masculinity, who can structure me. And that's not how it works, because my masculine side needs to structure my feminine side to have this, perfectly balanced, uh, you know, uh, way that I can attract my best life or put my, natural gifts to use better. So I got kind of, I went on a few dating apps and started looking for people, and somewhere it felt wrong. I'm like, I don't want to be in a relationship. I don't, but I longed for the masculine energy. I longed for the structure and support. And until the light bulb went off that, oh, wait a minute. That's, I need a structure, me. I need a mask. I need to love me in order to see this happen. Does that make sense?
It does. So basically, essentially, masculine energy is the structure
Mhm,
and feminine energy is the creativity.
mhm,
And bringing those together can be very empowering.
mhm.
And so essentially, it really has nothing to do with man, female, nothing to do with, being an auto mechanic versus a hairdresser. It's
Right, right,
really just structure, feminine, and the
right.
femininity is
Creative, yeah,
the creative part, right?
right.
And when so it makes perfect sense. And it made perfect sense when you were like, well, I need a man to have
Mhm,
that structure, right? It's going to
mhm,
structure me so that you can be creative, so that you can be your whole self.
mhm.
But you learned that you really had to love you and you had to be, part of that. You had to create your own structure.
Right,
And
right.
part of that is that
Yeah,
self-love component.
it is. And like, and what I ran into too in my mind is, or just with my identity, or with, the imposter syndrome, is that, well, in order for me to be feminine and to like hone in my most best feminine, I have to be loved by an actual masculine man. So I ran into that too, like looking outward. I kept looking outward. I was like, where is he? Like, I need to find this masculine man to help me structure my feminine energy. And but it didn't feel right. And then I would always like create the profile for like all these dating apps, and then I just like delete it because I was like, this isn't what I want. This isn't right. This can't be right. And the more I started like looking into even like the like the three initiates with the Kabbalion, or I don't know if I'm saying the correct title right, but or the laws of the universe, that there is this sense of duality, there is this sense of darkness and light, there is this two, there's always two, and it's how you can bring them together to make the one. And I was just having this really cool conversation with my stepsister's significant other, and I was saying to him that it's just funny that um people want to eliminate war and destruction and chaos in the world, where if we did that, we wouldn't be human.
Mhm.
So part of being human is having, our darkness and our light. And
Mhm.
that's part of the experience. And if we got rid of all the chaos and the trauma and the sadness, which, I'm not saying we have to hold on to that, we would not be here and we would not be human. So we are here having a human experience. And part of that experience is accepting our shadows, accepting our darkness, accepting the one side of us, like our shadow self, or, our our spoiled or our desperate inner child that's demanding attention,
Yeah,
you know um
exactly.
so it can be conflicting, and I feel like people can feel guilty when they say, what, my darkness empowered me. Do you know what I mean?
100%. A hundred
Yeah.
percent. I'm actually, it's funny because like we were talking, like, Casey's in the process of writing a couple books herself. And I just, I co-authored in a book that's releasing in August. And right now I'm working on an ebook. And it's about self-love. And I haven't released that was the initial topic, but I was literally just working on that this morning, the acceptance component,
Hmm.
writing my chapter about how accepting the good, the bad, accepting who we are, right? Like that's a
Right,
huge piece.
right.
And I love how you're talking about how, you had to go on you went on those dating apps and you would start the profile and then you would delete it and it didn't feel right. And there was like that constant, like, it was almost like you were battling it, right?
Hmm.
And that piece of it doesn't feel right. I know it's not what I want, but yet
Hmm.
at the same time, I think it's what I need.
Right, right.
And I went through that back when I was, in my single days, where
Hmm.
I mean, I was constantly, at one point I was on all the apps and then I was off all the apps and I would
Right,
go back and forth. And then
right.
then I'd start a profile and then 10 minutes later take it down because I'm
Yeah.
just like battling this part where it's like, I felt like in order to be accepted by society, by, accepted for myself, I needed to have a relationship because
Mhm.
I was under the impression that you are only valuable, right? Especially if you're in your 30s, it is almost a death sentence if you do not have a man or a
Mhm.
relationship, in your life.
Yeah.
And but the thing was is that when I got sober, I was 29 years old and I got into a relationship during that time, and I was with that person for 5 years. And when that relationship ended, I was like, I don't know who I am. Like
Mhm.
somebody asked me, what do you like to do? Like, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do for fun? And I went, so I'm just like thinking of stuff because I didn't know. I
Right.
had, I was not in touch with myself at all.
Mhm.
I was more or less in touch with that society's rules, right? And in
Mhm.
touch with a whole other part of what was outside of me, right? And when
Right.
it came down to like, who am I?
Right.
It was a few years of just self-discovery.
Mhm.
Doing some dating definitely helped me figure out what was acceptable to me, what wasn't acceptable to me,
Mhm.
how I wanted to be treated, how I didn't want to be treated. But where I really grew was that finding that real self-acceptance,
Right.
that this is who I am and
Right.
it's really okay. And I
It
had to
is.
do a
Yeah.
lot of work with that.
Yeah. What's really interesting too is that I read something, I don't know if it was on social media or in one of the many books that I have that I've never finished. I just open to a page and read in that moment. Is that, and I found it very fascinating because I do really love psychology and I love the way our mind works. And this one person had said that, we marry and we date um, the person who represents like the unhealed trauma that we need to process, or we marry the person that represents the parent that we had problems with, because it's like our subconsciously we're connecting with those traumas and we're seeing it in someone else, but it's familiar, it's very familiar.
Trauma
So
bonding, essentially.
yeah, I mean, it is trauma bonding. And that's why, like, I feel it's so important that after a relationship ends, there is this, like the tarot card, the hermit, there is this time where you look within to find what lights you up, to see what has been healed. Because as we heal and as we like level up, um, people are going to get mad at that. And especially spouses or partners that married you or were with you when you were, um, you know, not the evolved person that you are or have grown to be, so people stay in those
Yeah.
relationships or stay in that trauma just because of the status quo, just because of the
Yeah.
social norms, and it ultimately just brings you back to that lower vibration, and and to me that's where we lose our free will.
Hmm.
And I've had many clients who are scared when they have readings, and it sometimes it frustrates me because they know that they sought me out and they want things revealed because they're going through a hard time, but then I'm told, well, I don't want to hear anything that's going to scare me, and I don't want anything revealed that might be scary. So, and it's interesting because my idea of what's scary is probably like completely different from what their idea of scary is. So it's like limiting me and how I could help someone. But like it's when we fear something, we literally give away our free will. We're saying that this fear and this idea and this energy has put me in such a state of I don't want to live my life or I don't want to be seen, that I'm
Right.
giving away my free will.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked with many clients on just this. I just even ran a challenge on overcoming fear, right? Because
Mhm.
fear really keeps us debilitated. Like you
Mhm.
said, it keeps you in this place where, you know, it's almost it feels safe, right?
Right.
So when it comes to, like you said, like going into a reading and, well, don't tell me anything that, because now that's forcing you to look at things you
Yeah.
don't want to, because it's the truth.
Right. And
right?
people are there showing up because
And there's
they
a
feel,
fear of the truth.
and but they want to know the truth. And they have come to the point where now I want to know, what are my blocks? What's holding me back? What are my problems? And, but I don't want anything that will make me afraid. And so like, that's where, you know, I feel like, okay, instead of doing a reading, let's talk about the things that you're afraid that I'm going to reveal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and that's your starting point.
Yeah.
That's your starting point.
Yeah.
And even with NLP and, you know, life coaching or just motivating people, and I have not many, but maybe like 4 or 5 people who text me on a regular basis when they're going through something or they have like aha moments and they just need validation or like, what are my thoughts? And I'm happy that they do that, because I know that the seeds that I had planted, which they prepared the soil, so they did that work, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
And it's just me saying that it may have been a year ago or 2 years ago, and I'm getting like, you know, text messages that like they're having their aha moments.
Right.
And it's really wonderful. And there's a quote by Joseph Campbell that I absolutely love. And if I could use it, you know, with everyone and anyone that I meet, I would. And I think I do. It's: the cave you fear to enter holds the treasures you seek. And I love it because that cave, that darkness, is where we can start to see our light and what lights us up in life.
Yeah.
But we have to say, you know what? I'm not going to allow fear to be a part of this.
Right.
And even if it's like literally just sitting in darkness, like the darkest room of your house, and putting like, you know, foamy earmuffs in and a blindfold and just sitting there, and just set a timer for like 2 minutes or something, to someone to come get you in 2 minutes, just to sit with your own thoughts and really ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Like, here I am in the dark, you know,
Right.
what am I really afraid of?
Right. And, you know, I know for me and my personal experience and my own personal journey is, you know, I was terrified to look at those things.
Mm-hmm.
It was scary because it's like you don't want to go back to it because it hurt you so deeply
Mm-hmm.
and it affected you in a traumatic way that when you go
Mm-hmm.
back and you look at it and relive it, it's almost just like it's it really is terrifying, right?
Yeah.
And it really does take great courage when you can come to that place and be like, I'm ready to face this now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I have a client come to me and they're ready to look at their fear or multiple fears and they're ready to take action, like I have formulated 4 steps, um, 4 to 5 steps, because technically I'm still in the process of really kind of making it a powerful method.
Mm-hmm.
But just taking the clients that I've taken on this journey so far and just those amazing aha moments, like I'm
Yeah.
celebrating with them because I'm
Yeah.
just like, it is beautiful when they
It
are
is.
just like, and they have that release where
Yeah.
they're just like, I'm ready to win my power. I'm ready to go. I'm ready
Mm-hmm.
to do this. And they take the action steps to overcome that fear. And the empowerment, right,
Mm-hmm.
is so strong that I can
Yes.
feel it in
Yes.
my
Yeah.
bones. And it's just
Yeah.
like, holy crap, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then that's where the confidence comes in.
Yeah.
That's where your
Yeah.
confidence comes in. And then you start in the self-love and, you know, fear is you don't even really think about it until you actually do.
Yeah.
How much fear can impact you
Right.
and how these experiences that we have in our lives can create that fear.
Yeah. And it's really, when we choose to look at the fear and stand up to it rather than running away, like, you know, you're running away from it your whole life, and then one day you're like, no, stop and turn around and look at it, and you realize, wow, it's not as bad as I spooled it out of control to be.
Right.
You know, or it's something that, oh, I can, you know, even as a veteran, I've done some therapies for PTSD and military sexual trauma. And one of them is like writing therapy. So it's like 8 weeks or 6 weeks of once a week writing about the traumatic event. So it's kind of like exposure therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very nervous about it because it's just the one event over and over and over and over and over again. So like just a quick little blip of it. Like, I remember walking up the stairs it was a really hot night and I could hear the outdoor stairs creaking as I walked up. And I remember thinking to myself, this is it. This is where like my life changes for the worst. And so I had to like face that fear and expose myself to that same event for 6 weeks over, and I had to write about it over and over and over again. And when I finished that therapy, I was like, my intrusive thoughts kind of stopped. Like it's not so like living in the back of my mind and I'm afraid of it because I don't want to bring it forward because I'm afraid of it. But now it's like, well, I brought it forward and I wrote about it and now I really don't care,
Mhm.
But um another one of my favorite quotes is thoughts become things, good or bad. So if we live in a state of fear, we're allowing those thoughts of fear to like dictate our thoughts, and thus all we see are things to be afraid of.
Yeah.
Because the universe and our subconscious mind, it's going to give us that. Like that's a vibration that we're sending out to the universe that I'm afraid. And so the
Yeah.
universe is going to be like, "Oh, they want stuff to be afraid of. What can I give them today?" Like because the universe isn't going to be like, "Oh, the universe loves you and is there for you, but you have free will." So
Right.
it's going to give you what
Yes.
you think about.
Yeah.
And so like last night I was just like, I don't know if it's going to come out backwards on this, but I kind of sketched like how I perceive things. And we all live in our own world and we all have a perception of, politics and religion. And in my opinion, like it's going to be hard to be like a one because all of us are here to experience life for a
Mhm.
certain purpose. And that could be to experience, trauma and then, you know, coming up from that trauma or, love or, something horrific. I don't know. Like, but so I don't know if you can see it. So
Can.
like
Yes. And
here is,
it's not backwards.
okay, good. So here is like these antennas. So I envision like these antennas coming up,
Mhm.
generating
That's really good.
the energy of my thoughts. Okay. And so then what happens is it's projected in front of me in our eyes. So all you're seeing is the reality that you're creating in your mind. Other people may not see it and can't see it because they're all living this. So we're
Yes.
living in this, whatever is in front of you is based off of what you've been thinking about.
Correct.
So your thoughts create your world. And if you want to change your life, you change your thoughts, you change your thought process.
Uh-huh.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
it can be daunting, but um like small changes too. Like it's easy to sit in that negative frequency and that negative vibration. And if I have someone come in that wants to change their life and wants like a past life reading or just like read my energy, tell me what's going on. Before I even do that, what I want to know is what you're watching on TV, what you're listening to, what books are you reading, because all these things program your mind subconsciously.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah, like these like murder documentaries that a lot of women are like obsessed with and they sit and they watch it over and over and over again, or you listen to low vibration music that talks about just negative stuff, or you're reading like constantly the news. And I'm not saying the news is wrong to read, but it's just one side, it's just one perspective of the
Yes.
world. So
I,
police what you watch, what you listen to, police it.
yeah. I recently was it was I went on TikTok one morning. Now, primarily I will use TikTok for recording videos. And
Mhm.
I always, you've seen my videos, they're very
Yeah,
positive, they're
yeah,
uplifting.
yes, yes.
I very rarely go into rabbit holes or watch a lot of videos.
Mhm.
Sometimes the people I'm following and my followers, I'll go and I'll see their stuff.
Mhm.
But essentially I don't, and this is why, because when I catch myself going into rabbit holes, it's never good.
Mhm.
So one rabbit hole I went down
Mhm.
recently was something came up. It was a clip that got not something I was following. It was a video that just came up into my feed about a plane crash that
Mhm.
was um somebody that was on Facebook Live and they were recording their plane landing. This was like in India, I think, Nepal. And the plane crashed and it was live streamed on Facebook and there were no survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And I came across the video. I'm like, what? So now I'm going into this rabbit hole and I'm researching it. Like, did this really happen or is this fake news? And I'm
Right.
going more and more and I'm watching and I'm watching. And the way I felt inside was very uneasy, I was upset. And it was like it really did a number on my mind because it put me in a place of darkness. And I'm like, I said to my husband, I was like, I went into this rabbit hole last night and he went, oh no.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's like, what happened? And I was just like, I was just like, I can't. So it's like, okay, there's my first warning, right?
Right.
Now this past week, I found this other thing comes up on TikTok. It's almost like social media has a tendency to put these things out there to like throw into like your algorithm to get you to go into the route to it, right? Because it's almost like, now I'm not bashing social media because social media has been a very positive thing for me as well. But I have to be mindful of these things. So this thing comes up. And I actually just did a podcast on it earlier this week about a situation happened in Utah with this young girl who was bullied by 4 other girls and it ended very badly. And it just, the young girl took her life. And now the 4 girls are being, they've been, they've been put out on social media. They have people posting their personal information, their home addresses. These girls are high schoolers getting death threats, and I'm researching it. And this, again, that same feeling of uneasiness, that anxiety that so much that I felt compelled to put out there a podcast about not responding with hate and bullying. Bullying bullies isn't going to make it go away. However, my point is that when we are putting ourselves out there to absorb that type of energy and that type of toxicity, right? How it really makes us feel and how it really affects our mental health. So that was when I realized that instead of scrolling for an hour on Facebook to numb out my brain, because this is part of addiction, right? We do things to numb out. I'm getting more and more back into reading, and I'm reading this amazing book about healing from trauma in a toxic world, in toxic environments. And it's like, I want it, and it's an amazing book. Like, it touches on so many incredible points, and I'll even put it in the comment section so that people can look this up. It's called, I'll have to even put the title because I can't think of it at the moment because I'm on a rant tangent, but it's like, putting, I'm like, I really would rather be filling myself with positivity, right? Like, I believe in God. So I will listen into the morning. I will listen to podcasts on faith. I will listen to podcasts in the morning about, positivity and healing and joy and anything that fills my cup with goodness. Right? Because I don't want to go back down into a dark spiral. And there are things in this world, like you said, like the news, a lot of that stuff can really create that it could really just put us in a negative place and really impact our mental health. So it's like, it's good that you ask that, right? Like, what are you watching? What are you watching? Because it really helps narrow down how did you get here?
Stop. Sorry.
Hi, doggy. We welcome animals here on the show. My cat's sleeping next to me. I'm surprised she's not on my head.
What I hear too is very, like, part of what I had to kind of figure out is, even with that doom scrolling in those rabbit holes, is like, no one's saying that you can't do it, but you have to have an intention. Like, what's your intention? And if we don't have intentions for ourselves or for the day or for our life, then we allow the noise of others to distract us from what it is that we should be doing, or what it is that we know we should be doing. You have to go sit. I'm gonna put her in her crate real quick. Is that okay?
That's perfectly
It's right here.
fine.
Yeah.
That's
Come on, come on,
okay.
come on, come
This is just an, thank you so much everybody for being here. Cause I mean, this conversation is just incredible and powerful. Casey is just such an incredible woman. And just, my mind is completely blown right now. Like I'm just sitting here, like, I'm like, this is like, I feel fired up by
on. Yeah.
this energy going on right now is just
Yeah,
like,
it's great. It is great. And people, what I would love for people to realize is that, like, conversations like this, watching stuff like this can really have an effect on your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And when we don't, like, intentions are everything. Intentions are what, like, the goals for yourself, spoken or not spoken, and what you're going to do. And it can be something as simple as, I am patient. Today, I will find ways to be more patient. Today is going, the universe is going to give me or provide me with experiences to help me cultivate my patience. So I find myself, as I'm getting older in life, not having a lot of patience or being very anxious. And anxiety makes us, it's a compulsive reaction to want to do something now. It has to be done now. And I really have to reset myself and reground myself to say, like, well, why does that have to be done right now? That is a compulsive reaction to something I'm just not okay with. And if I give space for that, then
mhm,
it's okay. Like, it's
yeah,
okay. And a lot of times when we do things like out of that compulsive reaction, we end up having to do it again because we don't do it right the first
yeah,
time. There
mhm,
is no intention. And um even when I started this journey, like, I got really into, like, the binaural beats, like the frequency music
mhm,
and like classical music, and not listening to music that had words, or um listening to too much talk radio, because it's still like opinions, and it's still, like, to me, like, I needed to cultivate my mind too, to realize that, like, be aware of my thoughts, know thyself, and
mhm,
be in that frequency to understand, well, what do I really want? And I think a lot of people, I don't want to speak for everyone, but for myself, I thought I knew what I wanted, and I just didn't know what I wanted.
right,
And I know what I don't want, but do I really know what I want? And ultimately, I've narrowed it down to freedom. Like, I want freedom to do,
right,
to express myself and experience life without the restrictions of social norms, or, like, money, or politics, or religion. Like, I'm here to experience this experience, but also try to be a light as well,
oh,
so.
yes,
And
yeah,
so many of the dogmas or the politics, and not even like left side right side politics, just politics in general, like, it's very limiting. It limits us, and it separates us too. But again, like, I it's part of, like, the narrative of other people giving you your life narrative, like you said earlier, like, you wanted to get married, or you felt like you had to get married or be in a relationship, or because it was what society, not that you said that, but, like, you, at one point in your life, you're on these dating sites because that's what, like, that's what works in the society, and that's how you could be a contributing member of society.
right. You are putting your worth and value on what has been programmed in our mind, right? Like, I don't know about you, but as a little girl, you were programmed to believe that, you go to school, you graduate, you get married, you but get a house, you have the kids, and so on and so forth. And my life did not work out that way
Mhm.
at all. And then I remember there was a point in my 30s where, I was probably about 34,
Mhm.
where I sat back and I was like, do I really want to have children?
Mhm.
Or is this something that society told me that I needed to do?
Mhm.
And I really pondered that.
Mhm.
And the thing is that I love kids. I do. And I had such a wonderful time being able to be a part of my cousin's little kids' lives and being a positive person for them. taking them for sleepovers and activities. And I mean, it was one of my greatest joys was being a part of their childhood. And, but I found that my life, my passions, my desires, the things I really wanted for my life didn't align with that anymore. Doing, starting my coaching business and being of service to others has become a huge part of my passions. Traveling the world is something that it's become part of my passions. And I'm not saying you can't have kids and do all of that.
Right.
It's just for me, it wasn't, the older I got and the further along I went in my journey, the less that became something that I was passionate for. And I think there's a lot of other factors that come into that. I mean, my husband and I got married when we were just about 40 years old. This is my first marriage, and this is his first marriage. He doesn't have children, neither do I. And we sat and we talked about it multiple times, what was best for us. And it's a personal decision. So anybody who decide your decisions, my point is like that, you know what I mean? Like, it's personal. It's between you and what works for you. It's between you and your partner. It's between you and God. It's between you and the universe. And that does not determine whether you are worthy or you are valuable. That's not it. Because we are worthy and we are valuable just as we are in who we are in this present moment, in your present self.
Right. And it's understanding too that in all reality, from my perspective, is that time doesn't exist. Like the only thing that exists is the moment right now. So there is things that we need to consider when it comes to time, but when you're thinking about, your life, your future, what works for you, it's so there are some people that, including myself at one time, are so forward focused that you're missing out on the present moment, or you're living in the past thinking about all the things that you could have, should have, would have been, but not understanding that the real power of the universe and the power of itself is in the present moment. And that's the only thing that exists. And it's the only thing that's going to put you on the track to your best life. So the thoughts that you're having right now in this moment, what you're doing right now in this moment is going to the universe is going to start putting stuff in front of you that's going to align with those thoughts. And you're going to be walking on your path in life because you've called those things into existence.
Right. And it's like, I love how you're saying, like, we're living in our past and we're in the future and just being in our present selves. And one of the things that, I learned this in recovery, working a 12-step program. And this was something that when I first got sober, like blew my mind. And I was like, this is what I need, right? Like, yesterday is gone. You cannot change what happened yesterday. Tomorrow has not come. Like tomorrow, that's not here yet, right? You can't change what's going to happen tomorrow because you haven't even lived it. It's not born.
Right.
We only have today.
Right. And there's like so many potential tomorrows that could exist based on what you're doing today.
Yeah.
So what you're doing today, if it's good and it's in the highest alignment with, your goals, and you set intentions and you're, like focused on those intentions and how you could be your best self, then the universe is going to bring those things to you, and you're going to keep walking on this path of higher self and healing. But if it comes from a place of, negativity or self-pity, or, not, like, I also feel like one of my biggest reasons why it took me kind of a long time to start making decisions or to stop drinking was because, oh my gosh, that means I have to be responsible. So I know there's a lot of people out there who may watch this and say, yeah, that's all good, but you don't understand. And it's like, we may not understand, but it's one day at a time. And it's understanding that when we start letting go of like false narratives or imposter syndromes, or, what the news is saying, or what the media is saying, what social media is saying, or what someone else is saying, like once we let go of that, then the universe doesn't see it as this is something that you want, but the universe or God sees it as you're holding on to it. So you must really want it. If you're holding on that tightly to it, then you must want it. So I'm just going to give you more of it because you are in charge of your own life. You have free will. We have our free will. Whatever religion you come from, you are given free will. And if you like, prayers are just asking God or your guardian angels for help. Like please intercede. Let this be an intercession. Like, help me on my path but I have free will. And at one time I would get very upset, and I hope I don't make anyone mad, but it's just my opinion. I would hear people say, we're going to have as many children as God wants us to have. And at one time I was like, gosh, that's like, you have free will. Like, God gave you a healthy body and healthy ovaries, and he gave you this body to, you have free will. It's free will. And so to me, like, I was like, they don't understand that they have free will. And it was very complicated for me. But then I started realizing too, but that is how they're choosing to live, that is their expression of their faith and their free will. So it took me a while to program my mind that other people, just because it's not in alignment with what I'm thinking,
Right.
like, or what free will is, it still doesn't mean it's not their version of free will.
Exactly. Because we
You
all
know,
have our own beliefs. We have our own,
right. Core
we have our
values.
own version of free will, right?
Right. Right.
And if something, and I truly, support this, where if something feels to your core that is your path, that is your calling, that is what you are supposed to do, then you need to follow that. So
Right.
if it's
Right.
to have, a family of, with 5, 6 children or
Mhm.
8 or what have you, then follow that, because
Right.
that is what you are called to do, right?
Right.
If you are somebody that's called to start a business and you feel it
Mhm.
in your core that this is, because that's my experience. Like, I feel it in my core that this is
Right.
what I am supposed to be doing. This
Your
is what
intuition. Yeah, that's your intuitive intuition. That's
yeah,
you
God,
saying that
yeah,
this is what I need to do.
yes. And I believe that, this is what God called me to do. God is saying, this is what I created you for.
Right.
I created you to be helpful to other people because they are going to need it.
Yeah.
And you are, my tool, my instrument. And that's my belief,
Mhm.
right?
Oh yeah.
Like, that's to my core, and no one can tell me different.
Right. Right.
And I feel that for everybody, whatever it is that you are called to do, that is your purpose. That is what you're
Right.
supposed to be doing. If you're walking down the street and that's all you can think about, that is your calling. If you're
Right.
going to sleep at night and that's all you can dream about, that is your calling. And you know what? You need to follow that. Whether society and some other people are telling you, no, that's not the way to do it, or, no one can tell you what to do with your body. Nobody can tell you what to do with your life. Nobody can, that is between you
Right.
and your higher being.
Right. Like, you wouldn't be you on this journey if you didn't have all those traumatic events happen to you. Like, we can't get rid of the bad things that happen to us because they're part of the things that make us great. And that's why fear is so limiting too, because if we fear messing up, or we fear, being exposed, then, we can't have those moments of, oh, this is how I rebuild, or this is how I make it to a point where I can share my story with others. And it's like one of so when I have someone that comes in, or like calls me and says, my house is haunted, or there's spirits in my house and it's demonic and it's evil, um it before I go over there, I'll have a conversation with them and figure out what's going on in their life.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, in my experience and just my opinion, is that we create our own poltergeists. We create our own entities that haunt us.
Yeah.
And it is a way that we can't hold on to these things any longer. So we're just like cultivating this like energy bubble of
Right.
madness, and
Right.
it starts to haunt us, and we think it's something outside. We think it's something evil and malefic. And
Hmm.
yeah, it may be, but it's from you. It's from it's from what you have cultivated, and your inability, or that person's inability, to acknowledge trauma that needs to be moved, or maybe a bad habit, or this guilt for doing a bad habit. It's just, like disassociating with it, but it's not going to leave you because it's still yours, so it haunts you.
Yeah.
And so when I go to a space, or that's the first thing I'm looking for. That's the very first thing I'm looking for is, what is this person hiding from that they need to release, and why?
Yeah.
And 8 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10, after 2 readings, or maybe a past life reading or a regression, it's acknowledged, and that person has the tools and the why as to what is going on, and they can release that energy and have the tools to fill that void with something, in higher alignment. So
Yeah. Wow. Casey, this has been such an amazing conversation. Like, I could go on and on and on with this conversation, but
oh yeah, we're past the time.
yeah,
I
we
just
are
realized that.
out of time.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh my God, don't apologize. I mean, this was a very empowering and very uplifting, and just like I said, like the energy here is just, it's like on
Yeah.
fire, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
love it. I love it.
so I would love to have you come back.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we're
Absolutely.
gonna have to bring Casey back because we got to hear more about this. We got to hear more about, because I really want to hear more about, the psychic medium work that you do and the process with that. And I'm sure other people want to hear more about that as well.
Yeah.
But as we're wrapping up, please let us, why don't you tell us, how can people reach you? How can they reach you if they want to set up a call with you or hear more about your expertise, or,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm on social media, mostly Facebook and TikTok, and anyone can private message me in those platforms. But my phone number is also on Demarse Intuitive Arts, which is on the Facebook page. I have a page set up, and my phone number's there. People can absolutely call or text. I encourage people to text me because I get a lot of spam calls and my mailbox gets full like that. So, but social media as of right now, I have a website that I've took down, but I'm working on. So, but social media is, and then when this video gets posted, I could post my business card in the comments too.
Absolutely. And what I'll have you do is send me the links to your social media
Sure.
platform so people
Yeah.
can find you there. That way they can get in touch with, like you said, you're going to post your,
Mhm.
in the comment section, you'll post your, business card.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah, we'll definitely get your information out there. Guys, get in touch with Casey, get in touch with your inner self. I mean, she's amazing. Text her, call her. But with that, thank you so much. Again,
Thank you.
yes, thank you so much, Casey. And everybody, I will end with this. Let go of fear and let your spirit shine.